You've already heard of BlackRock. You know it's big. You know it manages trillions. But here's what almost nobody tells you. BlackRock isn't just another Wall Street giant. It's more powerful than the U.S. government itself. In this video, we're not asking what BlackRock is. We're showing you why BlackRock may already be running America. Stay till the end, because once you see how deep this shadow empire goes, you'll never look at the word democracy the same way again. So before we ask how BlackRock bends Washington, we need to ask something simpler. How big does a company have to be to stand above governments themselves? Think about that. Nations raise armies. Presidents hold elections. But BlackRock controls a mountain of capital so massive it can bend markets with a whisper, 10 trillion under its command. That's more than Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Tesla combined. BlackRock doesn't orbit governments. Governments orbit it. And the strangest part? You'll never see a BlackRock billboard because you were never meant to. You're not the customer. You're the product. Governments, pensions institutions, those are the clients. Your paycheck, your retirement, your pension, to BlackRock, they're not savings. They're fuel. Fuel to move markets. And here's the deeper truth. BlackRock isn't alone. Together with Vanguard and State Street, the so-called Big Three, they are among the largest shareholders in nearly 90% of the S&P 500. When boardrooms vote on CEOs, three shadows are always in the room. BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and often their shadows are bigger than the people sitting there. So don't mistake silence for weakness. Their invisibility is part of their power. And the moment Washington panics, we'll see why they matter even more. But empires aren't born from silence alone. Behind every shadow system, there's a man who built it. And this one began with a failure, a $100 million mistake that would rewrite the world of finance. Before Larry Fink built the world's most powerful financial empire, he made a mistake so devastating it nearly ended his career. In 1986, as a young star at First Boston, he was unstoppable until one bet on interest rates cost his firm $100 million. In a single morning, his name went from genius to ghost. But that failure didn't break him. It rewired him. He became obsessed, not with profit, but with control over risk, control over chaos, control over the invisible hand that moves every market. So he started building something, a machine that could see what humans couldn't, a system that could predict collapse before it happened. He called it Aladdin. At first, it was just a risk calculator, a simple program to manage a few portfolios, but it kept growing, learning, connecting. Soon, Aladdin wasn't watching a few portfolios, it was watching the world. Today, that same system tracks over $21 trillion in assets, every pension, every bond, every mortgage, a digital brain that knows the heartbeat of the global economy. Because it is the heartbeat of the global economy. When banks stumble, they call Aladdin. When governments panic, they call BlackRock. And each time the world leaned on Larry Fink, his machine absorbed more data, more trust, more power. But here's the twist. BlackRock was never alone. Because behind every throne, there's not one king, but a council. And together, they don't just influence nations, they own them. They call them asset managers. But that's just the disguise. Behind the logos, behind the polite press releases, stand three entities that quietly own the modern world: BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. Together, the Big Three. They don't need billboards. They don't need campaigns. Their influence doesn't shout at votes, because together they are the largest shareholders in nearly 90% of the S&P 500. That means when boardrooms decide who leads a company, three shadows are always in the room. When Apple sets its direction, when Exxon drills, when JP Morgan lends or Meta censors, those shadows vote. They choose the leaders, the paychecks, the policies. You think competition drives the market? The truth is, the market has the same three owners. Each of the Big Three holds trillions. BlackRock, $11.6 trillion. Vanguard, $9.3 trillion. State Street, $4 trillion. That's over a quarter of all human wealth that's ever touched the market. Controlled by fewer people than can fit in a single boardroom, their fingerprints rest on everything. Your phone, your bank, your medicine, your news feed. They own the companies that build, the companies that sell, and the companies that tell you what to think, and yet no one elected them. no one can fire them. Their power doesn't come from armies or votes. It comes from ownership. Each share they hold is a whisper of control. Each index fund, a chain of obedience. You think you're buying the market? In truth, the market is buying you. Because when your 401k grows, so does their reach. When you invest in safety, they invest in dominance. Every mutual fund, every ETF, another thread in a web that wraps around the globe together, they are not competitors. They are a collective consciousness of capital. Three minds guiding trillions, balancing fear and greed like puppet strings. And when they move together, even slightly, entire nations shift. When they pull back, currencies bleed. When they push forward, markets rise like tides, obeying the moon. This is not capitalism. This is consolidation. Three corporations that sit above governments, above industries, above the illusion of choice. The big three don't conquer. They coordinate. They don't threaten. They own. And if BlackRock is the brain, then Vanguard is the heart. And State Street, the bloodstream. Because in the age of markets, control no longer requires violence. Just ownership. Just silence. Three companies, $30 trillion, and a world that still thinks it's free. They own everything, every company, every industry, every illusion of choice. But the strangest part? You've never even seen them, because the greatest power of all is the power that doesn't need a face. You'll never see a BlackRock commercial, no jingles, no smiling customers, because you were never meant to. You're not the customer, you're the product. Governments, pensions, institutions, those are the clients. Your paycheck, your mortgage, your retirement, to them, it's not savings, it's fuel. Fuel to move markets, fuel to build empires, fuel to feed a machine that never shows its face. BlackRock doesn't sell dreams, it rents reality. It doesn't need your attention because it already owns what your attention buys. The house you live in, the company you work for, the phone you're holding right now. Every paycheck you earn flows through a web of funds, index portfolios, pension systems, all roads leading back to the same hands, and those hands never reach for fame, they reach for flow. That's the secret. BlackRock doesn't rule by visibility, it rules by necessity. It's not the name on your paycheck, it's the name behind it, not the logo on your app, but the capital that built it. While you chase income, they chase inertia, the slow gravity that pulls the world toward them. When markets crash, they buy. When markets rise, they collect. Either way, they own the rhythm. Because true power doesn't want to be seen, it wants to be needed. And that's exactly what BlackRock became. Indispensable. When banks stumble, they call. When governments drown in debt, they call. When the system starts to crack, the same voice always answers. Not with speeches, with spreadsheets. You think of Wall Street as a battlefield, but BlackRock turned it into an ecosystem. No winners, no losers, just circulation. Money moving like blood through a heart that never stops. And in that heart, there's no face, no flag, no human ambition left to blame, just a rhythm, just a hum, just code, calculating who rises and who fades. The irony is haunting. A company invisible to the public now shapes the public world itself. It doesn't advertise because it doesn't have to. When your influence lives inside every system, visibility is a liability. BlackRock doesn't need to be seen. It only needs to be believed in, because that's the truest form of power. Not fame, not fear, but quiet dependence. You can't boycott it. You can't elect it. You can't even see it. And yet, every breath of your financial life feeds it. The markets move, the money flows, and the faceless empire keeps humming, unseen, untouched, unstoppable. For years, it watched in silence, unseen, unquestioned, unchallenged. But power that hides too long eventually draws light. And when the world finally looked up from its screens, it saw the face it was never meant to see. And it started to fight back. For years, the world slept under the hum of invisible power. But now, the silence is breaking. From Texas to Paris, from London to Beijing, regulators are waking up. Politicians call it a monopoly. Activists call it tyranny. But BlackRock calls it business. The backlash began quietly. States like Texas and Florida accused BlackRock of waging war on oil, of using trillions in public pensions to push a green agenda. They pulled billions from BlackRock's funds, vowing to fight back against woke capitalism. Across the Atlantic, France and Germany sounded alarms too, claiming that the Big Three's control over European markets had become a shadow government of finance. In Brussels, officials whispered of breaking them up. In Beijing, they blocked their expansion outright. And in Washington, even the politicians they'd once advised began holding hearings, asking the question they once feared to ask: how much power is too much? But here's the paradox. Every protest, every investigation, every speech still flows through the same machine they're trying to fight. Because governments invest their own pension funds through BlackRock, central banks rely on its risk models. And the world's largest economies are bound together by the same web they claim to resist. The puppet wants to cut its strings, but the strings are inside its veins. In 2023, Europe tried to curb their influence, but BlackRock simply shifted its weight, pouring capital into other markets before the ink was dry. In America, lawmakers threatened antitrust action, but the firm's own former executives now advise the Treasury. You can't regulate the hand that writes the regulations. That's the illusion of control. Every time the world tries to fight them, the battlefield changes shape. Because the Big Three don't need to win every fight. They just need to survive every storm. And in surviving, they grow stronger. When governments ban their funds, their private clients double down. When markets collapse, their algorithms rebuild faster than policy can react. Every crisis creates outrage. Every outrage creates reform. And every reform creates profit. The world thinks it's rebelling, but it's still feeding the same machine. You can protest BlackRock, but your pension is still invested in it. You can accuse it of control, but your government still borrows from it. You can scream about freedom, but your economy is still priced by its code. Because in a system built on dependency, rebellion is just another transaction. The illusion is perfect. Nations act defiant. Politicians declare victory, and headlines cheer for regulation. But behind the noise, the hum continues, steady, precise, indifferent, because BlackRock doesn't need permission to operate. It just needs motion. And the world keeps moving. When Texas bans them, they shift to New York. When Europe questions them, they invest in Asia. When critics attack, their returns rise. You can't stop what doesn't resist. You can't fight what doesn't fight back. You can only participate, willingly or not. And that's the final trick. BlackRock doesn't silence its enemies. It absorbs them. Every backlash, every rebellion, every angry law is just another rhythm in the market it already controls. Because, in the end, the illusion isn't that BlackRock is too powerful to stop. The illusion is that anyone else ever had control at all. Empires used to rise with armies and flags, with blood, conquest, and kings. But those days are gone. Because the new empire doesn't conquer. It calculates. It doesn't demand loyalty. It programs it, and its weapon isn't fear. It's dependency. You won't find its capital on any map. You won't see its soldiers marching in streets. Its borders are digital, drawn by code, guarded by data, expanded by algorithms that never sleep. This is power without ceremony, control without fingerprints, a dominion built not on territory, but on trust. When the next crisis hits, and it will, the world won't call its leaders. It won't look to presidents, parliaments, or kings. It'll look to the same place it always has, the quiet empire humming beneath the noise. It'll call BlackRock. Because in this new world order, governments borrow power. BlackRock lends it. Once, nations controlled banks. Now, banks control nations. And above them all sits a machine, Aladdin, watching, calculating, deciding. It doesn't care who wins elections. It doesn't care who draws the borders. It only cares about flow, capital, data, control. That's the trinity of the new age. The old empires built monuments to be remembered. This one builds systems to be forgotten. It doesn't rule through violence. It rules through invisibility. Because when every government, every pension, every market depends on your code to survive, you don't need to ask for power. You are power. The future won't be conquered by nations or ideologies, but by networks. Invisible, unelected, unchallenged. Built by men who no longer need permission to rule. We used to fear tyranny with a face. Now it comes with an interface. Empires fall, flags fade, but code endures. Because the new empire doesn't collapse when leaders die, it updates. So when the next crisis comes and the world trembles again, remember this: the phones in your hands, the banks in your towns, the money in your account, they all flow through one invisible vein. And when that system speaks, nations listen. When it moves, markets obey. And when it decides, the world follows. Empires used to rise with armies and flags. Now they rise with algorithms and silence. And when the next crisis comes, the world won't call governments, it'll call BlackRock. And somewhere deep in the hum of Aladdin servers, the future will quietly answer. If BlackRock is the empire of today, then who built the empire that made all this possible? Before there was Aladdin, there was gold. Before there was Larry Fink, there was Rothschild. The family that financed kings, funded wars, and wrote the rules of money long before the world had markets. Watch the next chapter. The Rothschild dynasty, the bankers who built the modern world. Because to understand who rules tomorrow, you have to meet the family that ruled yesterday.